As many of you know, I'm going to be heading off on sabbatical on January 1st, 2023 through May 1st, in addition to my usual week's vacation from Christmas through New Year's. Now, I know some of you thought I was already on sabbatical, but I'm not. I'm here right now. So my last service at Chalice until May will be on Christmas Eve. But what exactly is a ministerial sabbatical, and why will I be gone for 4 months? I wanted to share a little bit about the tradition and history, because taking a sabbatical is actually a regular practice in ministry, even required by the Unitarian Universalist Association to make the role of minister more sustainable. So ministerial contracts guarantee ministers 1 month of sabbatical for every year served. And this being my 7th year of service to Chalice, I've actually accrued 7 months of sabbatical. But 7 months, 7 months actually felt too long to me to be away from you all. So I only intend to take 4 months at this time. We've been through so much together these past 7 months, haven't we? So 7 years, haven't we? From fires to the borderline shooting, to political and climate upheaval, followed by 3 years of COVID and online worship. And of course, our successful capital campaign to buy Fellowship Hall, which we did, and the ensuing technological transformation of our sanctuary and facilities to offer multi-platform services and activities so that we can reach more people all over the world with our message of hope and love in a way than we've ever been able to do in the history of Chalice. And since ministers typically work 6 days a week and are on call 24/7 for pastoral emergencies, it's important for them to get time to rest, recharge, and re-inspire their continuing ministry. In fact, I wish everybody could have the opportunity to do that in their jobs. I think we would all be much happier in our jobs. But the relentless pace of ministry doesn't allow much time to refuel and keep the well of creativity full, because we preach over 30 times a year. And so ministers need opportunity for study and reflection and inspiration and growth to keep bringing congregations new material. And having said that, some ministers do little during their sabbaticals because they really need to sleep due to exhaustion and burnout. And others study something specific, or they write or travel or spend time with their families. It really depends on what the minister feels they most need to enhance their ministry. So during my sabbatical, I intend to travel and continue my spiritual, intellectual, and psychological evolution. And although I'm not going to be sharing where I'm going at this time, since I want to allow my journey to evolve organically, my emerging sabbatical theme is a pilgrimage to wholeness. And during this time, I intend to deepen my connection to my roots and to spirit. And so I hope to have lots of interesting experiences when I return, and will share many stories with you, no doubt. And I'm keeping a journal which will be fodder for many future sermons, I'm imagining. I just want to say I'm extremely grateful to you all for this period of renewal and regeneration. And never fear, while I'm gone, we're going to have wonderful worship leaders and guest speakers with exciting new ideas and energy. And I invite you to support them by attending faithfully, because they're going to be wonderful, and they will want the house full like this to feed off your energy and to keep Chalice's home fires burning. And our amazing group of leaders and staff will also keep the business of Chalice and all our activities buzzing beautifully. Excuse me. Now, some of you have expressed fears, I've heard on the grapevine, that I'm not going to return from sabbatical. And I wanted to address that. First of all, I want you to know that I'm completely in love with you all. I really am, completely. I feel deeply called to serve this congregation. And I'm so grateful that we found each other and believe that we share a healthy, vibrant ministry together. So my intention is to be here for as long as we continue growing in spirit and serving love together. And secondly, it may surprise you to learn that a minister's contract stipulates that we not leave within a year after sabbatical. Because in other congregations, people might have been tempted, but not me. So barring any unforeseen calamities, of course, I can't promise anything, I will be returning to Chalice for as long as you'll have me, because we have so much more to explore together. Thank you. Meanwhile, the board, our various congregational committees, and I have worked diligently over the past year to prepare for my temporary absence. And we're so fortunate that our staff is experienced and deeply cares about Chalice. Sam, Anthony, and Anna are remarkable at their jobs, absolutely remarkable. And they know all that's going on here and are there for you. And I think we need to give Anthony a special hand because he joined us 3 weeks before we went on lockdown for COVID. And we all are so grateful for you, Anthony, and your incredible work that you do here with us. Thank you. And in addition, when you add up all the time that our strong and thoughtful volunteer leaders have been at and served Chalice, we have literally hundreds of years of wisdom to draw from. Ani Barker, our new board president, is anything but new to the congregation, having been here for 30 years, at least, I think, right? And most of you have already seen evidence of her wise and dedicated leadership. Thank you, Ani. And there are also our Committee on Shared Ministry, the Council, the Pastoral Care Team, the Worship, Social Action, and Conflict Resolution teams. There are so many avenues to support you all and allow Chalice to continue flourishing. And don't forget that you all make this fellowship what it is. We are so privileged for all of you and everything you bring, each one of you, into our midst. We couldn't be who we are without you. And we're incredibly blessed that Reverend Ann Hines has agreed to serve us as our sabbatical minister 1/4 time. This means she's going to be in the pulpit. This means she will be in the pulpit with us twice a month, as well as dealing with emergency pastoral care issues and checking in monthly with our leadership teams as time allows. And in a moment, we're going to have the opportunity to get to know Reverend Ann better, and she's going to be holding a meet and greet after her first service with us on January 8th. So Reverend Ann's role is to be here as a resource for us in emergencies and special circumstances. But with only 10 hours a week, she obviously is not going to be available 60, 70 hours a week as I often am. So on our website, in the members Google Drive and in news and notes, you're going to find a list of whom to contact for various situations during my sabbatical. So we don't put it all on Reverend Ann. And there are plenty of people who are ready and willing to deal with all kinds of things that come up. So let's learn more about my amazing colleague and friend, our sabbatical minister, Reverend Ann Hines. Reverend Ann, please come up and join me here. So Reverend Ann, you know us here, don't you, a little bit? Yes. You were here with us for a year, the good, the bad, and the ugly, huh?
I guess I should use this.
And you were here with us for a year and a half as our interim minister from 2015 through 2016. Mm-hmm. But we have many new folks here since then who you may not know and who may not know you. So we'd love to hear a little more from you. So can you tell us a little bit more about your own history in ministry?
Sure. So I began my ministry on April Fool's Day in 1984, which everyone thought was pretty appropriate. I had graduated from Star King School for the Ministry, and began my first ministry at the UU Fellowship of San Dieguito, which is down near San Diego. They had been lay-led, completely lay-led for 25 years. They had never had a minister except for 6 weeks. They had what was called in those days a minister on loan who convinced them it would be a good idea to call a minister. And so I was there. They were very distrustful. They only let me preach once a month in the beginning, but we eventually, increased that. Anyway, I stayed there for 15 years, though I learned at one point that people at the UUA, the Unitarian Universalist Association, didn't think any minister would last more than a couple of years there. But I did. And then from there, I did a couple of interims, one in San Luis Obispo and one in Mission Viejo. And then from there, I did another settled ministry at Emerson UU Church in Canoga Park, and retired from there, and sort of. And then after a few months, your very beloved minister, Reverend Laura Brandis, found that she needed to leave here and go be with her family. So I was asked to come in, and that's when I started, I think it was March probably of 2015, first half-time and then full-time as your interim, which then resulted in this wonderful woman coming to be your minister. And I also am Minister Emerita at Emerson. And then I retired again, and then decided it would be fun to do a quarter-time ministry with a little church up in Bakersfield. And that was 4 months or 6 months until COVID hit. So that was 1.5 years on lockdown and by Zoom. So as we all know, Zoom worship is not nearly as fun as in person, but thank goodness we had Zoom. And now I'm doing also a quarter-time contract ministry with the good folks of Goleta. And that's just for about 6 months.
Thank you. I'm wondering if the choir would like to be able to see better. Maybe we should put this shot up on the screen. There we go. That way you can see Reverend Ann.
I should point out that two congregations have changed their names since I was there. Both the one in Mission Viejo and now this one. Mission Viejo is Tapestry. And I don't know if you needed to go into hiding after I was here, but.
So Reverend Ann, did you ever take a sabbatical?
No. Yes, I took several sabbaticals. Several not, so I was allotted 6 months sabbaticals after being somewhere for 6 years. And like Rev Nica, didn't usually feel that was, that I wanted to be away that long. So I took several smaller times, but I did, before leaving San Dieguito, I took a 6-month sabbatical where I drove across the United States, stayed at my sister's house on Cape Cod, and worked at the UUA in their Faith in Action department, but also learned that our Church of the Larger Fellowship had many, many members who are incarcerated. So together with them, we began the Pen Pal program for CLF that is still going on today with incarcerated Unitarian Universalists. And then before leaving Emerson, I took another 6 months, again drove across the United States and stayed at my sister's house on Cape Cod. It's really nice to have a sister who married someone with a house on Cape Cod. And there I began trying to write a memoir, which I'm still working on today, but it will get done eventually.
Okay, now I've got a lot to live up to, Reverend Ann.
I also think it's really important to do sabbaticals where you do nothing but whatever you want to do, where you don't have big plans to produce anything. So whatever you want to do.
So what did you learn that helped your congregations while you were gone on sabbatical?
Well, I learned that I was not indispensable, and that they learned then how resilient and creative and independent they could be without their minister. I learned that at one of my settled ministries, where they had never had a minister for more than 5 years in their entire time, I was taking like a 3-month sabbatical after 5 years, and was told by colleagues, you can't do that. They're going to go nuts because it's the 5th year and they're not going to think you'll come back. But I decided to just be honest with the congregation that I was going to trust that they would trust me to return. And of course I did return. I was there for many more years after that. So they and I learned that we can trust each other when we say we'll come back. And I learned finally that I'm not a CEO, which by the time I was supposed to be, that's what ministers were supposed to be, the CEO, and that's great, but I'm not that. And we did some restructuring of administration, so that was helpful.
Thank you. And so in what ways are you looking forward to being our sabbatical minister?
Well, I loved my time here with all of you.
They're pretty great, aren't they?
They are pretty great.
Pretty great.
And so it's going to be fun to be back here with you. I am looking forward to helping Reverend Nica get the sabbatical that she so richly deserves. And so that if I can be a part of her knowing that everything is going to go just fine, I'm happy to be able to do that. I respect her ministry here so much. So just this morning, it's been wonderful to see how things have changed. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of the impact of your ministry. And I just think we're going to have a fun time.
And Reverend Ann, you're nothing but, I mean, if not very funny. So you guys are going to have a lot of fun times, I think, together. Very lucky. So is there anything else you think we should know about you before we?
Just that I'm very nervous about remembering all your names. I'm so glad to see name tags in large print. And so please don't be offended if I look at your face and then your name tag. Or if you aren't wearing one, tell me your name. But it's wonderful I recognize all your faces except those of you who weren't here when I was here. And the only other thing to know about me is that I don't drive the freeways anymore at night. And seem to talk a lot about medications I'm on, but so stop me if I start. No, just that I don't drive at night. So night meetings I'll be doing on Zoom.
Well, lucky most of our meetings are on Zoom
Yeah,
now. I really appreciate that too. So that's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And Reverend Ann's first service with us is going to be January 8th. So be here to support Reverend Ann for her first service. It'd be great. So in the tradition of our faith, just a second here, Reverend Ann and I thought it would be important to have a covenant for this time. So I'd like to invite our board president, Annie Barker, up to set the scene for our covenant. And we are going to go a little longer today in our service. Hope that's okay with you. There's too many goodies to share with you today.
Okay. Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
So the relationship established between a minister and a congregation is special. It's interdependent, rewarding, and complex. It is important that both the members and the minister seek to keep the best interest of the congregation in mind during times of transition. We also recognize that the relationship between the congregation and its former ministers, usually an interim minister, is unique, and that interim minister's renewed presence in the community poses a distinct advantage as well as challenges. So in these circumstances, it's wise for these ministers to develop a clear understanding of their roles and responsibilities within the congregational system, as well as articulate how they can best support each other and the general ministry and flourishing of the congregation. This covenant acts in the same way that our covenant of good relation acts, in that it is both aspirational and indeed. So Reverend Ann Hines served Chalice from 2015 to 2016 between our settled ministers as an interim minister. She's now returning to us as a quarter-time sabbatical minister from January through April of 2023. Rev Nica Eaton-Guinn was called to be our settled minister of Chalice beginning in August of 2016 and continues to serve as our settled minister. Rev Nica is undertaking the first sabbatical of her 7-year ministry at Chalice. Both ministers have agreed to now enter a covenant with one another, grounded in the professional practice and guidelines of the Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association and the Unitarian Universalist Association. This covenant is based on the understanding of the unique relationship a minister has with the membership of the congregation.
And I think, Spencer, you can take that shot off again. We're not ready for those words yet, but thank you. So in celebration and recognition of Reverend Ann's prior ministry and upcoming sabbatical ministry at Chalice, and respecting the best practices of ministry, I covenant to be faithful to the letter and spirit of the Code of Professional Practice and Guidelines of the UU Ministers Association, as we enter into a relationship of mutual honor, respect, and caring. Therefore, I welcome and value the contributions and participation of Reverend Ann as sabbatical minister and as part of the rich tradition of ministry in this congregation and our faith. Reverend Ann will be ministering 1/4 time for an average of 10 hours per week, so I remind the congregation that she will not be full-time like I am. Her duties will include preaching twice a month and meeting with the board, COSM, worship, and the staff team once a month as time allows, and with pastoral care as needed. Reverend Ann will be helping to maintain the status quo at Chalice during my absence and will not be instituting changes or new programs. I will be out of communication during my sabbatical, and Reverend Ann will be available to handle emergencies along with the board and the Committee on Shared Ministry. And I will speak directly, privately, and honestly to Reverend Ann about any concerns I may have with her return to Chalice and also upon my return from my sabbatical.
In celebration and recognition of Reverend Nica's ministry at Chalice and respecting the best practices for ministry, I covenant to be faithful to the letter and spirit of the Code of Professional Practice and Guidelines of the UUMA as we enter into a relationship of mutual honor, respect, and caring. Therefore, I will honor the congregation's call to Reverend Nica as the current settled and sole minister of this congregation. I will not be instituting changes or new programs during this time. I will not participate in any conversations with church members or friends about Reverend Nica's ministry or any controversial issues at Chalice. If I find myself in a situation where such a conversation begins, I will absent myself and refer such questions to the Committee on Shared Ministry or the board. If I am concerned with anything to do with Reverend Nica's ministry, I will speak directly, privately, and honestly with her about my concerns upon her return from sabbatical. At the conclusion of my sabbatical ministry, I will not remain in contact with any members of the congregation unless specifically agreed with Reverend Nica.
As Unitarian Universalist ministers, we covenant to be mindful in our actions and to speak the truth to each other in love, to keep the best interests of this congregation above all, so that this fellowship may continue to thrive and live out its missions and values.
While problems are not anticipated, Reverend Ann and Reverend Nica agree that if problems do arise, they will address them quickly and forthrightly with one another. Should further assistance be needed, they will reach out to the good officers from the Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association. Having witnessed this covenant, it is our intention as a congregation to support and affirm this covenant to ensure the health and flourishing of the congregation and its ministry. Although this covenant is between two individuals, the two ministers, all of us at Chalice have a stake in the success of it. Each of us must strive to ensure the success of this sabbatical ministry as we strive to make all the interests of our congregation succeed. Each of us must both speak and act in such a way that encourages this covenant, as well as loving, responsible dialogue. I now invite the members and friends of Chalice to speak the following shared words of support. We, the members and friends of Chalice, support and uphold this covenant by turning to Reverend Ann during the sabbatical, while remembering that Reverend Nica is our settled minister. We welcome Reverend Ann back to our community and look to hear her guidance during Reverend Nica's sabbatical, while respecting the limits of her quarter-time ministry. We too endeavor to support and participate in a relationship of mutual honor, respect, and caring with our minister and our sabbatical minister. We will inform ourselves of the sabbatical protocols by observing the guidance offered on whom to contact about which issues during the sabbatical. We will not engage Reverend Ann in any conversations about Reverend Nica's ministry or any controversial issues at Chalice. We will follow our covenant of good relations and take any questions, thoughts, and ideas to COSM or the board. We strive to be advocates for the health of this congregation and the flourishing of its ministry.
Thank you all. May it be so. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Ann, for taking such good care of these folks. I know you'll be wonderful. It'll be a blessing to have you here.